I never imagined a single night could change everything I had built, everything I thought I knew about love and respect. But that night, my world cracked and I saw the truth about my marriage in a way I could never unsee. It started innocently, or at least I thought so. My wife, Emma, and I had been invited to a gathering at her friend's house, one of those small social events where everyone pretends everything in their lives is perfect. I had my doubts about going. Socializing had never been my comfort zone, but she insisted, painting it as a night to celebrate our marriage. I believed her. I wore my best suit, fixed my hair, and tried to muster a smile, though my chest carried a quiet weight I couldn't quite shake off. The night began as expected. Polite greetings, small talk about work, vacations, trivial achievements. Emma was unusually animated, laughing more than usual, twirling her glass in a way I hadn't noticed before. I leaned toward her once, whispered a compliment about how she looked, but she barely glanced my way. Instead, she leaned into her friends, her eyes bright, and laughed at things I didn't understand. I shrugged it off. Maybe it was the drinks, maybe it was the crowd. Then it happened. I was across the room, talking quietly to a mutual friend, when I caught her words. At first, I thought I had imagined it. "Look at his face," she said, voice low but clear enough to pierce my skin. "He looks ridiculous." I froze. My brain refused to process it. I thought maybe she was joking, making a playful comment about me for her friends. But then I heard the laughter, not hers, but the group around her, affirming her words. My chest tightened and I felt a cold burn rise through my stomach. She was mocking me openly in front of everyone. My face. My dignity. The person I trusted most had chosen that moment to humiliate me. I wanted to walk over to demand why she would say something like that, but I couldn't. My mind raced with disbelief. How could she, my wife, the woman I had shared my life with, reduce me to a punchline in her social circle? The rest of the night passed in a blur. I smiled, nodded, even laughed when someone made a joke, but inside, a storm was growing. Every laugh she shared with them, every glance that excluded me, stung more than I could admit. I realized then that this was not just about the night. It was about years of neglect, micro-dismisses, moments I had brushed off thinking I was overreacting. I had been blind to a pattern, subtle at first but undeniable now. By the time we left, the tension in my body had solidified into resolve. I barely spoke on the drive home, focusing instead on the road. Emma tried to engage, asking about my day, commenting on something trivial I had mentioned earlier. I gave curt answers. Not out of anger but out of clarity. For the first time, I wasn't trying to smooth over the cracks, to pretend that everything was okay. Because it wasn't. It hadn't been for a long time. I saw her in the rearview mirror, laughing to herself about something I didn't hear. And at that moment, I realized she didn't just dismiss me, she had already moved past me emotionally. The next morning, I didn't rush to confrontation. I didn't send an angry text and I didn't accuse her of betrayal. I observed, quietly like I had been for months, waiting for confirmation of what my instincts were telling me. Her tone was lighter when we spoke to her friends on the phone, her smile sharper, practiced, directed at anyone but me. I started paying attention to small things. The way she left the room when I entered, the subtle change in the way she dressed, the laughter that didn't reach her eyes when I complimented her. It was all consistent. She had already begun to separate her life from mine, and it was deliberate. I made a decision that would change everything. I would stop asking, stop hoping, stop compromising my dignity for the illusion of a happy marriage. I didn't confront her yet. I didn't need to. Her actions had spoken louder than any words could. I started reclaiming my space, my time, my energy. Little things first, more time at work, more evenings spent on my hobbies, more weekends with friends I had neglected. Each step back created a silence in our home that she couldn't ignore. And in that silence I could hear the truth. She had underestimated me, assumed that my love and patience would allow her to humiliate me and keep me tethered. She was wrong. The next social gathering was telling. I attended, but differently this time. I wasn't invisible, but I wasn't present for her validation. I observed her, and I noticed the glances, the slight tension in her posture, the way her friends laughed a little less when she spoke. It was subtle, but it was there. I had stopped being the audience to her performance, and suddenly the performance lost its power. I realized that respect is not demanded through words, nor loyalty begged for through tears. It is established by the boundaries you refuse to cross, even when it hurts to stand firm. And that night, I saw the first cracks in the carefully constructed image she had shown the world. I also realized that losing me would be far worse than any momentary embarrassment. She had mocked me in front of everyone, yes, but the consequence wasn't just my hurt feelings, It was the slow unraveling of the life we had built together. I began to plan, quietly, for the steps I would need to reclaim my life if she continued down this path. Financial independence, emotional stability, and a network of support became my focus. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want drama. I wanted clarity, dignity, and control over my life again. By the time we sat down for dinner that evening, I could see her hesitation. Something had shifted. My silence was louder than any confrontation. The calmness in my voice, the deliberate distance in my demeanor, all communicated a truth she could no longer ignore. The woman who had mocked my face, who had made me a joke in her circle, now realized that the man she dismissed was no longer accessible in the way she thought. I could feel her calculation, the subtle shift in her strategy. But I was no longer the same man who would wait for permission to be treated with respect. I spent the rest of that week observing, adjusting, and reclaiming my own life. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just existed in a space she couldn't touch. And in that space, I discovered something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. The mockery she had intended to diminish me instead illuminated the truth. I had been patient, kind, and forgiving, but never weak. And now, in the quiet aftermath of her actions, I realized that the loss of me would cost her everything, just as I had silently understood all along.